the Oracle Outlook for the week starting January the 15th, 2018. This week I wanted to work with one of my favorite decks, so the deck that I've chosen to assist me for this week's reading is the Hermes Playing Card Oracle deck. It is by Robert M. Place, and it is published by Hermes Publications. So I have the deck on hand, and I'm going to take a few moments to shuffle the cards. And as I do every week for these general readings, I'm setting the intention and asking the question, what do we need to know for the week ahead? So now I'm shuffling the cards my other way because I really want a good shuffle this week. I'm feeling that'll be great. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut the deck. Fan out the cards. And now I'm going to pick 5 cards for the line this week. So I'm just looking for 5 cards in the fan that are getting my attention. Now that I have those cards selected, I'm putting the remainder of the deck to one side. And when I work with a line of 5, I always start with the middle card. For me, the middle card represents the central issue for the week or something that we're being asked to focus on for the week ahead. And here we have the 5 of diamonds. Okay, so for me, diamonds is the suit that can represent money. So if I pair the number 5, 5 for me represents change and activity, then this could be the week where we're being asked to focus on either financial activity or financial changes. It reminds me of what I talked about last week, because in last week's Lenormand card reading, we had the fish show up, and the fish is the money card in Lenormand. So there may be some carryover from last week's financial activities, because last week we had talked about things like getting ready for taxes that might have to do with property, real estate, housing, mortgages, things like that. And so there may be some carryover for some of us who maybe started that process, or maybe that, you know, in the midst of doing that, sorting through, clearing out, cleaning up, we realize there's some financial changes we need to make, or there's some financial activities that we need to engage in, because I'm seeing that with the 5 of diamonds. Now, one of the things that the 5 of diamonds can represent for me is shopping. So somebody may be shopping for certain things, and it'll be very interesting to see what the cards around this card might show us, because it may tell us more about what those expenditures are. But this card can represent shopping. It could also, either in the literal sense or in the metaphorical sense, I tend to look at the 5 of diamonds as a gamble card. So somebody may be gambling. It has another way of dealing with money and financial changes in activity. But it could also be in the metaphorical sense that we may be facing an opportunity of some kind, and we may be looking at it in terms of it being a gamble, which means that there may be some level of risk involved, right? So there is something having to do with that as well. But my chief meaning for the 5 of diamonds has to do around financial activity and financial changes, and chiefly shopping in accordance with that, or in alignment with that, or going along with that. Now, this deck, one of the reasons why this is one of my favorite decks is because it has divinatory symbols in the center of the card. So the 5 of diamonds has the pig. So the pig is a card that can represent luxury. If you go with the idea that the pig is like a play on for, you know, the idea of hog heaven, if you've ever heard that expression, that represents like wealth and luxury, or living high on the hog, that's another thing. Now, sometimes I see the pig as something that represents excess. So for some of us, if we're making some sort of financial changes, or we're engaging in financial activity, part of that might be looking at what we consume excessively. You know, if we go with the idea that last week's reading talked about clearing out and clearing out the house, then this might be playing off on the idea of clearing out excess, you know, things that you no longer need, no longer want, you know. With that, you know, the expression that is coming to mind is trimming the fat. So for some of us, we may be trimming the fat, and that just looks at what do we consume an excessive amount of, and this might be the week where we're being asked to trim the fat. So again, 5 of diamonds could represent looking at our finances in terms of changes, in terms of activity, shopping with the pig. It could represent taking a look at either the level of abundance that we have or what we may be having excessive amounts of and trimming the fat. So now let's take a look at the surrounding cards, because again, the surrounding cards are going to offer us more information or guidance, and I start with the card on the far left. So here we have, on the far left, we have the 3 of diamonds. So now we have 2 diamond cards showing up again. Diamonds is the suit that can represent money. It can also represent things that we're putting our energy in. And so the energy could be, you know, time, resources, that kind of thing. Now when I get the 3 of diamonds, this is a card that can represent financial increase, because the number 3 can represent increase and expansion. With this card though, the increase is usually a minimal or a small amount because of the number 3 being a smaller number on the scale of 1 to 9, right? So with that in mind, it could represent a small financial increase, a small financial gain. Now the 3 of diamonds can come up maybe if we're talking about financial changes and financial activity. This card would suggest, like, what are we doing that's going to help create some financial gain? If you're no stranger to my videos, this card has come up before, and when it shows up, I usually talk about the idea of, you know, looking for work. And so that could be part-time work, it could be temp work, it could be moving from part-time work to full-time work, something of that nature, but it would be something that allows us some kind of gain or increase. Now, very interestingly enough, I had talked about the idea about a gamble, because the secondary symbol on the card is the horseshoe, and so the horseshoe is a symbol of luck. So there may be somebody who may be maybe putting a little extra money into things like lottery, sweepstakes. The last time I checked on the news, I had heard like there were these 2 lotteries that were going on at the same time, and they were like hundreds of millions of dollars. I think one was like 300 some odd thousand million, and the other one was over 400 million. So I'm seeing that in my mind, but somebody may be wanting to play games of chance, try out their luck on something like the lottery or some sweepstakes or some sort of contest, some possibility where they could win an excessive amount of money. So I'm seeing that. But my chief thing is maybe somebody's actually taking a look at ways of bringing in more money, and that may be through what they do for work. And so there may be some kind of change. So if you're not working, you may be thinking about getting part-time work. If you are working part-time, you may be thinking about going to full-time work, you know, that kind of thing. But I see that with the 3 of diamonds. So now let's take a look at what's between the 3 of diamonds and the 5 of diamonds. And here we have the 5 of hearts. Okay, so hearts is the suit for me that can represent things like feelings, emotions, relationships, that kind of thing. The first thing that I notice is that we have the number 5 repeating. So there is something about changes being made, being active, because the 5 represents activity. I tend to look at this as the idea of like handling a situation. If you go with the idea that there are 5 fingers on your hand, right? So I play on that. So there could be something that we need to engage in, or we need to be more active in. Now, if I take the idea of pairing diamonds and hearts, because those are the 2 suits on the table, then this could be engaging in activities which we find some kind of emotional reward with the process. So I'm seeing that. Now, the 5 of hearts for me can represent about an offer. So this could be about an offer being made, something of an opportunity being presented. So I tend to look at offer, opportunity with the 5 of hearts. Also, too, it could be something being presented that's almost like a dream come true. So I'm seeing that because that's what this card means for me. And so since it is hemmed in, which means surrounded by 2 diamond cards, it may be something having to do with money or finances. Now, this card has, as a divinatory symbol, it has the black cat. So whenever the black cat comes up, it could represent things like flattery. That's one of the meanings of it. So it could be like maybe an offer or an opportunity that's being presented that, you know, you may find flattering. So I'm seeing that. Now, I also tend to look at the black cat as an animal who is independent. You know, I'm not a cat lover and I don't own a cat, but, you know, when I have been around cats, what I've noticed is that they tend to kind of take care of themselves. You know, they come around their owner when they need some attention, or they need to be fed, or they need some sort of taken care of, and then once they receive that, they're kind of off on their own. So there may be something having to do with independence around whatever this offer is, this opportunity, this dream come true, that kind of thing. The other thing with the black cat, and I'm playing on the idea here that the black cat is symbolically representative of being a familiar to a witch. So for me, the black cat can represent this idea of something being familiar, right? So this opportunity, this offer, it could be something that is of a familiar nature, or that a person who's attached to it is familiar, meaning that you know the person. And with that, the 5 of Hearts has feminine energy attached to it, so there may be a woman who's attached to this. So that is the 5 of Hearts. So now let's take a look at what's on the other side of the 5 of Diamonds. Okay, so here we have the King of Spades. So now the first thing that I want to talk about here is that we have a first black card. So spades for me can represent things like problems, challenges, difficulties, obstacles, hurdles, but it also comes up because we need to either solve a problem or make some kind of decision, right? So there is that to keep in mind. Now coming after diamonds, because remember now the card that came before it is the 5 of Diamonds, so this could be like the financial activity or the financial changes, maybe as a result of some sort of financial problem that has arisen, right? So I'm seeing that and needing to make a decision in accordance to the problem. Now I'm seeing that now. Sometimes for me, the suit of spades can represent something that needs to be eliminated. So going along with this idea that it comes after the pig card, and remember I told you that the pig card was about something being excessive. So again, there's this idea of maybe something needing to be trimmed, something needing to be cut, something needing to be eliminated. And it may have to do with money, and if that's the case, it may be because there's a budget to keep in mind or some sort of financial change that has produced this need to eliminate something. Now with that in mind, the King of Spades is about, you know, something having to do with needing to make a decision. I tend to look at the King of Spades as like the judge card. So that here we're being asked to maybe use our judgment in terms of what we need to eliminate. And with that, the judge is a person who hears all the evidence in a court case, if you will. He weighs all the pros and the cons, he weighs the facts, he weighs the evidence, and then he reaches a decision based on that. So this could be a week where we're needing to look at the pros and cons of a situation in order to help us make the best decision possible. So I'm seeing that with the King of Spades. Now, the King of Spades has a divinatory symbol of the lilies. And so the lilies is all about peace, tranquility, harmony, that kind of thing. So it could be as a result of whatever the changes are we need to make, or, you know, if there is an offer we need to consider, and maybe the offer is going to help us make some more money to some degree, then the lilies is all about, you know, coming to some peace about the decision-making process. It could also be, too, like the offer or the opportunity is based on one's level of wisdom or experience, because those are other things that I attribute to the lilies card, right? So there is that. Now, the only other thing that I would have put to lilies is that lilies can sometimes represent something old, or if we're talking about a person. Now remember, I talked about this idea of the 5 of Hearts being feminine energy, Then if we pair that with this card, it could be an older person, so it could be an older woman, because I tend to look at lilies as somebody who is an elder or a senior, or somebody who has some level of seniority, right? So there is that aspect of it. So I want to say that about the King of Spades and lilies. And so now let's take a look at the last card, rounding things out. And here we have the 10 of Hearts. Okay, so the first thing that I want to point out is that we have 4 red cards on the table. So predominantly red cards can represent a positive week. For the most part, we only have 1 spade card, so there may be a little hiccup along the way, but we can work that out, right? So I'm seeing that, and then we have 2 hearts and 2 diamonds. So there may be something having to do again with this idea about something of an emotional reward, you know, something rewarding on an emotional level. So now the 10 of Hearts for me is a card that can represent something having to do with either marriage or family. It could be saying too, like, if we're going to be engaging in something, we're going to be making a serious commitment. If it's not marriage in the literal actual sense, then this is about making a serious commitment to something, right? The number 10 can represent something that we're in a state of transition about, and with that it could represent something that's ending, so something new can begin, because I take the 10 and reduce it to 1. And 1 can always represent something beginning, but the number 10 in and of itself can represent something ending, but also something beginning at the same time, or it's moving in that direction. So it could be saying too, on some level, we may be needing to close a chapter, and as we close a chapter, the next chapter starts. So I'm seeing that. The card has the divinatory symbol of the dog on it, so the dog can represent something having to do with help or support. So it could be saying too, like, one of the things we might need to consider is who can we call on to help and support us as we move through whatever this transitional state is, or maybe help us with the decision-making process. It could also be too, because I talked about the 10 of Hearts being marriage and family card, it could be saying too, like, the decision needing to be made, because I'm seeing the King of Spades looking at the 10 of Hearts, could be saying too, like, the decision-making process may involve more than one person, so it may affect other people in the family, let's say. It may be a family kind of situation or dynamic, and so the decision being made is going to affect not just the individual person, but could be affecting the entire family. So I'm seeing that, and then with that in mind, then the dog card could be, again, not just help and support, but also like maybe seeking advice, so it could be like turning to an advisor, something of that nature. But the dog can also come up too when we're being asked to maybe trust ourselves, because for me the dog can represent trust. And so it's very interesting, we have the cat and we have the dog. So it could be a message about trusting our instincts, because animals symbolically represent our animal instincts, our animal nature. You know, as human beings, we are still part of the animal kingdom. So for me, animals symbolically represent our own instincts and our own instinctual nature. So with that in mind, it's making me feel like trusting our gut, trusting our intuition. We may have a hunch and we need to kind of play it out. You know, that idea of, you know, the gamble or the risk, maybe just, you know, playing your hunch or playing a hunch kind of thing. So I'm seeing that with the 10 of Hearts and the dog. And so on that note, I will wrap up and end this week's Oracle Outlook. I'm James Himm Mitchell, and as I close, I'd like to thank you for sharing space here with me for this week's reading, and I look forward to sharing the same space with you again in our next video reading together. So until then, I'm hoping that you have a wonderful day, and I'm hoping that you have a wonderful week. Take care.